Your home can be more than just a home. It can be your own personal fitness retreat, a place where you break a sweat, break your personal record, or just get a break in the day. Johnson Fitness and Wellness is your partner in creating the perfect home gym. And now, enjoy up to 50% off top-rated treadmills, ellipticals starting at $5.99, and major discounts on strength equipment. Visit a local store or johnsonfitness.com. Your home gym is just a few steps away.
Can you hear me?
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am Kellie. You're listening to Sunday Talks with Kellie and Lisa. Lisa is trying a headset. Let's see how it works.
Good morning. Do I sound okay?
You sound really, really, really faint.
Oh my goodness, that's not good. How's that?
But yeah, if you've been listening on a regular basis, you know that our last show, Sunday Talks with Kellie and Lisa, was actually on a Wednesday because, well, life happened. So we are back on our regular day for this show. And today we're starting to talk about your relationship with money, how to make that relationship a good one. We've talked about self-love just, to death. And I think we're going to move on with that, keeping in mind that how you view yourself and how you feel about yourself and how strong your self-love is really, really, really does impact your relationship with money and every other relationship you have in your life. I thought I would kind of start the show today with something that I personally know. And if you've followed me for any length of time, I was a pretty successful real estate broker for a very long time. I was used to a six-figure income. It was very nice. I was very comfortable. And then when the market fell apart and my marriage fell apart, all of a sudden I was facing something that I had not in a very, very, very long time, and that was not having the money that I wanted or even that I needed. And I realized within myself that really, really did impact how I felt about myself. And it definitely should not have, and I definitely should have known better, but it really, truly did impact how I felt about myself. So I thought I would use that to let you all know that we are all a work in progress. None of us are ever perfect. We are never everything that we think we should be. There's always something within ourselves that can grow more. And I realized within my own self that I had tied too much of how I felt about myself with how much money I was bringing in. So don't think you're ever done. You're never done growing. Don't think that even if you are years along your spiritual path and you know these things in your mind, don't think that it still can't impact you in some way. So, be mindful of that when you are growing and learning and as we talk about money through this series. What do you think about that, Lisa? Are you back with us?
I am. I decided to forego the headset, so thank you so much for being patient with me. There is, particularly in American society, such a connection to money and success and how we're perceived by others that I know along the way it's been more in the last maybe 10 to 15 years that I've had more of an awareness of how much money I don't have compared to when I was younger or when I was, young and married for the first time. And there was an awareness of we are, that struggling young parent relationship or whatever the case may be. But lately, I do notice the connection a lot more to money. And point right now is I'm in a job that I do have the ability to earn maybe double the pay rate that I'm getting. However, I feel I don't like the way I feel with the amount of money that I'm making. I feel like I should be making more. So that leaches over into how I actually feel about the role that I have. And when I wake up in the morning, I have to really train myself to say, I'm making an impact on others' lives. I'm helping others to have more income. Could be, a mom who just wants to help her family, with whatever sports fees and things along those lines. It could be, a young college student who just wants to make sure that they have a car payment every month. And I really have to work on telling myself that what I'm doing has a purpose for other people, that I am, in fact, some third extension of being able to help people with their, with their financial situation. The reality is I don't feel good enough in that role as far as the amount of money that I'm making. And so it does have an impact on some other things.
And I think especially in the United States, we are sort of indoctrinated to the idea that how much we make or how much we have equals how much we are, worth, or how much we are loved, or how much we can do things. And I have struggled with that a great deal in my life personally, because my family had, literally nothing. There was a thing, money in, money out. It was subconsciously. And I've learned this through a lot of meditation and a lot of work on myself. Subconsciously, what my family taught me was that if money comes to you, oh, wow, get rid of that as soon as you can. You shouldn't have that. What are you doing with that? No, get rid of it. Give it away. Spend it. Do something. And I think I'm not alone in that. We are all kind of told that. What do you do? When you're a very young child, they're already asking you in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? What kind of job do you want to have when you grow up? Honestly, I changed my mind probably a dozen times before I was actually an adult. But all of those things, all of those questions, if you look at them deeper, what are they asking, really? Are you going to grow up and have a job that you will be able to and have the life you want to live? That is the real question they're asking. And all of those little things that we pick up and that we hear through our lives, beginning in early childhood, really does impact how we work with money, how we view money, what we think about money when we grow up. I was talking to someone yesterday about money, and the response I said, and it was a simple question, and I've asked this multiple times in life coaching and in business coaching. How do you see money? What do you when I say the word money, what is your first impression? And her very honest response was, not something I'll ever have. Other people say, oh, that's a lot of work. Or people who have a whole lot of money are stingy, they don't share it. Things like that. And we all pick up our views about money as we are growing and maturing, especially in the United States. Now, I remember someone I loved dearly as a child selling things so that they could take an injured animal that didn't even belong to them to the vet. Their relationship with money was, I don't have it and I need it changing, because it was for that animal. But that, again, is not a real healthy response. How many people do you know that make good money that have tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt, even though they have a very good income? That's a poor relationship with money. When we learn to live within our means and appreciate every little thing that we get, then we're on our way to having a good, positive relationship with money. So few of us get to that point. You know, on our last show, I talked about the author I know who, by receiving a royalty payment in her bank account for $1.07, and, you know, on the surface, I understand. I'm an author. I get royalty payments. My lowest royalty payment has actually been 89 cents. And I know how I felt when I got that. I was like, what? That's not even worth, you know, publishing a book. But I caught myself.
Yeah.
And we really have to catch ourselves. And I told her, be grateful that you have that $1.07. There are many other authors who have never gotten a royalty payment. And that doesn't mean we should compare ourselves to others. It just means no matter how small, you have to be grateful. And not everything is money. You know, if you have someone who volunteers to do something for you that you would otherwise have had to pay somebody to do, you've made that money. Even though it wasn't cash in your hand, it is still valuable. And I think we have placed too much emphasis on money for money's sake. You know, there was a time when I had lots of money and I pretty much supported a valley, you know, in one way or another. And what I learned through that experience is that sometimes people aren't grateful when you do give them money. And sometimes we aren't grateful when we are receiving money. So it does in a huge percentage of how good our relationship is with money. How grateful are we for things that come into our lives? You know, when I was a kid, somebody gave me a car, and I drove the wheels off that car. And I am really not sure I ever properly thanked that person. That was a really bad relationship with money. And we have to be conscious of things that come into our lives that benefit us that are not measured in dollars and cents. So when we talk about money, it gets almost as complicated as talking about love or self-love. But it's all really about your perspective and how you view things. You know, there have been days in my life where that $1.07 that my author friends received would have been absolutely amazing. But I think as we grow and we go through our adult lives and we face things like bills and traumas and medical things and cars breaking down, we sort of get a little bit dated. And we start thinking that those little things that come into our lives aren't important. And they really, really are. So what do you think about a relationship with money?
I know, and I feel it in my gut, that the universe will always provide for me and that I will always have what I need when I find money on the ground or a random check comes in the mail. I'm always very grateful. I get very excited about the receiving of that money. And I read somewhere that somebody puts the money towards their third eye. I don't, because it's money and it's gross and it's dirty, especially in COVID era. But, you know, I'm still very grateful to receive that when I see my paycheck. You know, I'm very grateful for that. Sometimes my paycheck is more than I'm expecting, so I question and I have to stop myself and say, we're just going to do a little bit of investigation. We don't want to question because we don't want the universe to be like, oh, you don't need that. We're not going to give you as much next time or whatever.
Right.
So, you know, I'm open, or I have the awareness of how I'm supposed to do that with money. But when you said the question that you ask, you know, your coaching clients, I got a little bit of anxiety. I kind of felt it in my chest a little bit. I was like, "Whew, that's that's my reaction to it. That's my reaction to your question. That's my reaction to money. I am much, much better than where what I used to be. And there was one time where I was very dependent on others. I felt that was my role, and I was supposed to do that. And sometimes I did it very well, and sometimes I wasn't so good at it. But, that was that societal, this is how you're supposed to, you're supposed to get married, and you're supposed to have kids, and you're supposed to be a housewife and all of that. And I know it's changed, but I grew up with that. I grew up with the woman's role is this, and the man's role is this. And my mom my dad lost his job at the age of 52. And for a very long time, particularly back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was difficult for people who were older to get another job. There's the concept of we can hire two of you for the price that you charge, or whatever the case may be. So for a long time, my mom was the breadwinner, and it did go against growing up in the South as the woman is supposed to get married and have babies and take care of the household, and so it was. Even though I saw that, there was this internal struggle of, it's okay if I go and do it. And my parents never raised me like that. Let me just set that out there. My parents never raised me to get married, have kids, do the whole housewife thing. They always encouraged me to do, go to college, have a great career, the whole societal thing, and the struggle of, well, if I go to college and I have a career, then I'm going to have to quit halfway through to have babies and, be a housewife and all that. And there was just there were some women in that time period that were career women, and, there weren't very many that were being, that were in the spotlight for us. So I don't know where I'm going with this, Kelly, but, that was kind of like the whole thing. Like I felt like I needed to be the housewife. And then when I became that on more than one occasion, it was not what I was supposed to do. When I was married and I was in the military and I was the one, I had my career, I had my own money, that is when I felt the most alive. That is when I felt like I had, and it wasn't so much connected to the job, just as it was more of what I was doing. I had the career, I had the children, and, I was still a mom, and I still had this amazing career, and that's when I felt my best. Then I fell into a relationship, and that changed, and I became a housewife again. And when we were doing our show the last time, I wasn't exactly the best version of myself. I was definitely, we're all a work in progress, like you said earlier in the show, and I was under some serious construction. Like there was almost an entire demolition and a rebuild, right? It was
I know that one, yeah.
Quite an interesting experience. Yeah, very interesting experience. And I wasn't living in my truest self. I wasn't living the best version of myself, and I was in a lot of denial. And so I was very dependent on somebody else to be financially stable. I mentioned my job earlier, and I am financially stable now, but I'm not where I want to be. And that's something, when you were talking, you're supposed to have this blind faith that everything that you have is going to be provided for you, and that money, it is an energy, it is a tool. I'm caught up with, if I squirrel away too much money, then I'm showing the universe that I don't need more. And there's just this whole spectrum, a polar opposite type of internal struggles that I have. But like I said, I'm definitely a lot better off than where I used to be.
Right. I think you touched on something there. When we're talking about relationships with money and struggling with money, I know a lot of, at least my age, and even, to your age, did grow up with that, grow up, find a nice guy, marry him, have kids, be the housewife, he'll support you. And in talking with a lot of those women who took that route, and then, the marriage broke down, or he was stingy, or whatever it was, they were very, very wrapped up in, who am I without the money and without the husband and without the, whatever else it was, the big house or the cars or whatever it was. And I think throughout our lives, we have to be destroyed and put ourselves back together several times in order to really move forward. I know I have never been married to a man who gave me money, even when I had no job. It was always, stingy men. If I had to get money to go to the grocery store even, it was like I begged and pleaded for days to get that money. And then money had a really bad taste in my mouth. It's like, you know what, I don't need this. And in talking with a lot of other women, it's very, very similar stories. And that really undermines your relationship with money. It really does. But somebody else may have an entirely different situation, and they have an entirely different relationship with money. So when we're talking about, a blanket relationship with money, we need to also be aware that everyone is on their own path. And where I might think, the whole cliche, money comes in, money goes out, that money doesn't belong in your bank, somebody else might think, well, that wasn't my problem. But my problem was I didn't deserve the money to begin with, so it never came in. And the reason I say all that is because I want people to understand this is not a one-size-fits-all. Relationships with money are very, very complicated. And each and every one of us need to really sit down and ponder, what is your relationship with money? And one of the things that I found that helps a lot of people is, what is your gut reaction when I say the word money? And if it is an anxiety that comes up, well, poke it. Why is that anxiety coming up? If it takes a whole lot of work to have money, look at that. Where did your money story originate? One of the things that I used to do with people is take them on a sort of a journey with your inner child. We talk a lot about inner child on the show. And one of the things that is very, very effective for everyone, no matter what your money story is sit, be quiet, invite your inner child to talk to you about your money story. Where did it start? I've had people tell me they were an infant when it started. I've had people tell me they were a teenager when it started. Whatever age your inner child seems to be to you when you ask that question, that's where your money story started. In my case, I was probably about 3. And I wanted something that, nobody could afford to buy for me. And I don't even remember what it was at this point. For some reason, I think it was candy. That seems about right for me at that age. But whatever it is, what vision you get, whatever hunt you get. I know many people listening to this show don't really see vision, but whatever your heart is telling you, that's where your money story started. And that's what you need to kind of poke and prod a little bit and go a little bit deeper and ask yourself questions till there are no more questions that you can think of to ask. We all have a money story. And yes, it does start with self-love and self-worth. But those terms are starting to really grate on me. I think we need new terms. But Do that work. Do that. Give yourself that gift of figuring out where your money story started. A lot of us didn't know until we sat down and figured that out. And maybe you won't get an answer the first time. Some people take several times of just sitting down, and don't deliberately try to think about it. Just be open and invite your inner child to tell you. And you'll get an answer if you open yourself to that answer. A lot of times we don't want to give up control. As humans, we are very controlling. And anytime someone tells me my inner child doesn't exist, or I don't have one, or they don't talk to me, that's control. That's a control issue. You are trying to control the outcome. And that's an entirely different show. So I won't dwell on that. But really, you know, if you open yourself up to the answers, you have all the answers. So what
you mentioned like you can remember. You mentioned that you can remember almost an exact moment, and I think some of us it's more of a conditioning. Because I can recall my childhood, particularly my formidable years when I was, that preteen age, teenager, and I went to a church that had a lot of people who worked hard for their money. They worked really hard for their money. There were some professionals in the, in this congregation, but a lot of people were, even if they were like the higher end blue collar workers, they were slaving away for a corporation for, $30, $40 an hour. And seeing that the majority of them, particularly the women that went to like a grocery store or, they were clerks or cashiers or, there wasn't a lot of secretaries, like the typical woman role back in that time. There was a lot of, that is what I saw a lot of, or they would even work in the, in the factories around the area because there was a lot of industrial stuff there too. And, that's something that I saw. That's something that I grew up with. And when I went to the school that I went to, it was interesting because I went to a private school. The private school obviously cost money, but I didn't go to private school with a lot of people whose moms and dads were, doctors and lawyers and these, six-figure income professionals. I went to school with a lot of people who were very much that socioeconomic job status, employment status in the town that I grew up in. So for me, I think it was more of a conditioning of using words more so than a particular moment in time. I heard all of the time, you have to work hard for your money.
Right.
Money doesn't grow on trees. We're not Rockefellers. You're going to do this job for the next 30 years and you're going to retire with a, menial pension because you're lucky the company is going to give you a match for your 401k or whatever, and right. There was always the broke mentality or, things along those lines. And I really saw that more on more of a macroeconomic scale in the town that I lived in than at my home. I do remember another thing. My dad never bought me name brand stuff because he refused to pay to advertise somebody's business.
Right.
So
right.
that connection to money and that money is evil. And, of course, growing up in a church, money is the root of all evil. It's not good to be greedy. But I don't ever remember the lessons of the opposite side of that. Money is the root of all evil. If you allow it to be the root of your evil and don't use it for the greater good, or don't use it to provide for your family, or don't use it to have retirement when you leave this soul-sucking job. So that's what I remember. So it was more of allowing myself to be brainwashed about money because of words more so than actual things that I can pinpoint, other than my dad saying that he refused to buy name brand stuff. But now it doesn't make sense because even off name brand stuff is still branded in somebody's business. Right. So like, I don't know. But that was his relationship with money, you know, and I mean, that was fine. He didn't want to buy name brands. He didn't have to buy name brands, but that was just kind of, I think that there was a little bit more underlying in that phrase than he always let on. Now that I have more of an awareness to money mindset and, you know, law of attraction and law of manifestation. So.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that about money that we're told, and somebody just messaged me with this one, you'll never have money. Now, how many people grew up hearing that? Oh, you'll never have money. Our family will never have it. And after a while, it seeps into your subconscious. There's a lot of other things. You know, only rich people have money. You have to be born into a wealthy family. All of those things that we are told environmentally, not even, you know, necessarily hearing it all the time, but you kind of pick that up as a kid, usually. Yeah. I remember hearing my parents, aunts, uncles, grandmother talking in hushed tones about money. You know, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've got to do something. And even those kinds of things subconsciously affect kids. And as much as I tried to have a money conversation with my daughter, it's still, you know, it's funny how we learn something as children and we swear we're never going to do what our parents did because it hurt us. Right. And they didn't mean to hurt us, but it did. And then we do a different thing with our kids. And then our kids say, well, I'm going to do something totally different with my kids because my parents did it, and it didn't work. It's funny. But hearing my daughter now talk to her son and almost repeat what I said verbatim is really a weird sensation. It's really very odd. It's like, hey, wait a minute, where have we heard that before? And then she'll tell them, no, that's what I was told, and we're going to do something different. And we're going to have a different kind of something. And while I applaud her effort, it's kind of funny because things like that kind of skip a generation. And some of the things that she tells her kids are things that my mother said. So it's funny. It's just really interesting to me how as humanity, we seem to have this one-size-fits-all money story. And it tends to maybe skip generations. But, you know, it is a complicated topic. And I think the best anyone can do, really, is the one day at a time thing. You know, look at you today, and then tomorrow, try to be a better you. And we're talking about money. So try to be a little bit better with money tomorrow. A lot of times that goes back to gratitude. Somebody taught me a long time ago, every morning you should look at your bank balance and you should thank that money for being in your account. And, you know, at the time I had something like, you know, $30 in my bank. And I was like, really? I should be grateful to $30? But whatever you put out into the universe is what comes back. It was a hard lesson for me to grasp. It really was. And I have a friend who is a very positive thinking person, and she called me one day and she said, hey, I need to ask you if I can borrow $20 for a week because I looked at my bank account this morning and a check bounced. Oh my God, why are you so positive about that? Why aren't you upset about this? Well, it was only one. Okay. And she was grateful that only one check bounced. And I had to sit with that for a while. Why would anyone be grateful? But the bank paid it, it was an important bill, and she knew she'd have money in a week to cover it. I don't yet have that level of positive thinking, but I can understand her point. And in her specific instance, money came into her bank the very next day, unexpectedly. And that was my takeaway. She was grateful for her situation because she realized in the past it had been worse. And that gratitude, I honestly believe, is what made money appear unexpectedly in her bank. And I have tried, I haven't bounced it, well, I don't write checks. So, I have tried to emulate that. I have alerts on my balances. And every time I get a text about an alert, you wanted us to let you know when blah, blah, blah. And I'm always look at that and go, why, thank you. Thank you for telling me. And I am grateful that I still have money in the bank. Now I will know I need to stop spending the money I have in the bank. It's all about your attitude and your perspective sometimes. And a lot of times we need to just take a giant step back from wherever we are and look at it. Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food in my house? Those are things to be grateful for. And whatever you are most grateful for is what the universe is going to give you more. And a lot of times, especially in this country, we miss that whole lesson until we are well into adulthood most of the time. So, yeah, be grateful for those situations that aren't necessarily the best ones, too. What do you think?
You mentioned lessons, and I strongly believe that we need to have personal finance courses, period.
Yep. In school.
For even young children. Even young children. This is something that is small, but I feel it's important, that it's relevant. When I work in the apartment industry, young adults, up to about the age of 30, there were many of them that would come in and not know how to fill out a money order and just hand me a blank money order. Now, had I been a dishonest person, I could have taken that money order and, cashed it myself. But I was a very honest person, and I would teach them right there in the office how to fill out that money order. It's similar to a check. I had a personal finance class in high school where they taught us how to balance a bank account. Who does that anymore? We have access to our bank account. We see a number in there. Then how many people do you know bounce checks and whatnot because they see that number in there and they forget what's coming out? They forget about that auto pay. They forget that their car payment is going to automatically be drafted in 2 days. And so they use the money that they see in the account. They have no awareness of their money. And I think the beginning of the journey of manifesting more money and allowing more money into your life is just being more aware, like you said, of the money that you do have, even if it's a bad situation. I did the same thing. I locked up money in one account, and rent was due. So the program that I use to pay rent, I have to make all of the payment from one account on the day that the first, when it posts to this account. I cannot make split payments unless I take physical checks or money orders to the office. So I locked up one of my accounts and ended up scrambling to try to get together my rent payment, which was in an account that I never used. It happened to be on a weekend, a holiday weekend at that. So it was one of those situations where I was like, this is, it will work itself out. I have the money. I can clearly see the money in this account right here. However, I didn't set that account up to be one of my payment accounts. And because it was the weekend, it was one of those things that wasn't going to clear to be authorized as a payment account until after rent was due. And it was just this whole wild, crazy situation. I knew it would work out, so I tried to not panic too much. And it did work out. And I just, it finally, everything did work out. Maybe not as quickly as I had wanted it to. The lesson was more for somebody else rather than me, but, you know, it did work out. And in all of that time, I worked really hard on being aware of not allowing panic to set in because I was, quote unquote, short on money. I feel that when you're in those situations, yes, panic is going to ensue. You're going to worry, how am I going to pay my mortgage, or, you know, whatever the case may be. But if you allow that to be the overall feeling and you don't take action on that feeling to try to find a solution, that's what you're sending out to the universe. So that scarcity, that feeling of scarcity or lack or fear revolved around your money is what you're signaling to the universe. And if you're not careful with that, that's what you're going to continually experience. But going back to the lessons, I feel there's a lot of adults that need those lessons, and just to be more aware of your money and reconcile your bank statement, or be more aware that just because that money is in there. I think now it's harder to be more aware of our money in our bank accounts because we do have these auto pays. So now you have to juggle your paychecks around all of these auto pays. So this is my experience anyway. And this might be part of where my money story now is. This is the main spotlight of my money story, as opposed to the stuff I've learned from the past, because now it's my money's coming in, but now I really have to keep track of what do I have on auto pay? What subscriptions do I have? Do I have Netflix and Hulu and Peacock and Disney Plus? And am I paying for like the Coffee of the Month Club? Oh, that's a good idea. I might need to start one of those. Like those types of things. What? Thank you, universe, for a solution to my problems. See? But those types of things, you know, what do I have going out? And, you know, what am I paying for on a monthly basis? Now I have to juggle my money even more because I'm not physically paying for that. And I think that can be a part of not being as aware of your money, or, you know, technology. While it's a blessing, gosh, it can be a curse. And you're getting these apps now that say, hey, come in and buy this and get double rewards points. And it's, you know, Coffee of the Month Club, and it's time to come in and buy this thing and get that next thing. And so, you know, it's in our face so much more. And it's just a swipe of a card. And we just swipe and we swipe and we swipe and we swipe and we swipe, and we're not keeping up with that.
Right. And that's where looking at your bank account, everything I have is online. I do online banking, and really I was afraid of it at first, but it has been the biggest blessing because I can look at my bank account and I can see what the balance is, and I keep a running list of auto pays, and I just look at it that way. And, you know, it helped me, where before online banking, I had more of an issue keeping up with exactly how much it was really in my account. But honestly, online banking, to me, when I look at what they say is my balance, sometimes it's hundreds of dollars more than I know I really have. So when you keep that running list of, okay, it's the 15th, I know that this, and this are going to be auto pays coming out. You have to be conscious of what you have coming out. Those auto pays can really sneak up on you, especially those subscriptions that you mentioned. And I think we have gotten in the habit of being lazy with our money, and maybe we need to pay more attention to it. And whatever you pay attention to is what is going to grow the most. So I highly encourage everybody to visit your money daily, at least once a day, and really look at where you are financially. And if you don't have a goal, you're never going to reach it. A lot of bank accounts right now have what they call buckets for saving. You can allocate so much money for this and so much money for that, and they will keep you updated on how much money you have in each one of those buckets. I know my bank, Ally, does that. I think Wells Fargo also does that. But look into things like that. If your bank doesn't offer that, write it down on paper. You know, one of the things that I used to teach people when I would teach law of attraction is journal about your money. Write your money a love letter. And that reaffirms that you are looking at and paying attention to your money story and where you're at with money in your life. And, you know, in this day and age of everything is, you know, computerized and you just swipe that little card and we kind of forget. If you don't write it down right away, we kind of forget, oh, yeah, I bought that coffee, and, oh, yeah, I paid for lunch. And you really have to pay attention. And anything you're not paying attention to is going to falter. That's just, you know, basic law of attraction 101. So you want to pay attention to it. You want to look at your money. When you're looking at your money, you want to be mindful of how it makes you feel. When you look at your bank balance, how do you feel about it? You know, are you down on yourself? I should have done better. Because that's a money story you need to change. You need to say, wow, today I have this much money in the bank. That's awesome. Even if you would like to do better, you can tell yourself, you know what? I'm on my way. It's getting better. It will get better. It is better. We're kind of winding down on time, and someone sent me a money meditation earlier. And I think we're going to hold off on doing the whole meditation. But I do want to kind of take it apart and give some money affirmations. And I know we've talked about affirmations a lot through the years. And the thing about these particular affirmations is the intent is to set yourself up for success with your money relationship. No matter where you are now, you have to have a starting point. This is your starting point. If you're not where you want to be, that's okay. One of the big affirmations that I really like in this meditation is I allow money into my bank account. The reason that's important is because sometimes we think we can only get money from a job, or we can only get money if we sell something. And that's not true. Money can come from anywhere at any time. So if you just repeat to yourself, I allow money into my bank account, you're already one step ahead of where you were. Another really good one is I allow money to flow effortlessly to me. We really don't have to control every aspect of our spiritual journey. And by saying something as simple as I allow money to flow effortlessly to me, you're saying maybe you don't have to work so hard to get money. One that's not in this particular meditation, but one that I've always liked, is money flows to me from expected and unexpected sources. You know, last week I got an unexpected check for $15. That was a rebate on something gotten. I even sent it. It's just being open to receiving. And if you're open to receiving money, you kind of let go of controlling where it comes from. Often we think I can only get money from a job. That is the biggest problem I see in the United States. We've been conditioned to think we have to earn money and it has to come from a job. That's not necessarily true. It's great if you have a job, you have a regular income coming in. That's wonderful. That doesn't mean you can't win $100 playing the lotto one day. You know, and I think a lot of times we block ourselves from receiving simply because we're not open to receiving. What do you think about receiving and being open to receiving? I'm not sure we've had this discussion before.
I don't think we have, and I think that's a really great topic for the next show. I think that a lot of people are blocked from that. I know there are times where I am, and I think that's a great segue to next week, where we can talk about being open to really believing that money flows to you effortlessly from both known and unknown sources. And how are you open to that? How open are you to that, to allow that money to actually come to you? Because it is a tool, it is energy, and it is necessary in this day and age, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. I think we'll end here, because I do think that's a good segue to next week. I want to give everybody something to kind of think about, and that really goes back to, what is your money story? You know, when you think about money and you think about getting money, what do you think about? You know, when you think about money coming from an unexpected source, how does that make you feel? And if your gut reaction is, oh, that would never happen for me, change that right now. Change that to, well, maybe it hasn't happened in the past, but I'm open to it happening now. And just play with that and see how it sits with you. And if it makes you anxious, there's where you need to do a little bit of work. So thanks so much for listening. Please, please, please share the show and comment, like it, all of that wonderful stuff. That's us wrapping up for now. We will be back on next Sunday, and we'll continue the series. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.